Support provided by Walters, Papillon, Thomas Cullens, LLC, specializing in business litigation and personal injury cases for over 40 years.
When I was 15 years old, I was arrested for second-degree murder, a crime I did commit, a crime I take full responsibility for, and a crime that I don't minimize. I continue to have remorse for what I've done, for the pain I've caused. But since I was 15 years old, my life changed, my family's life changed. I took the life of somebody, something I can't take back. I permanently affected a community, someone else's family. When I was 17 years old, I was convicted and sent to a state prison. Whenever I got to a state prison, I then began to truly take inventory of my life, recognize the decisions I made whenever I was young, in spite of having a wonderful family, in spite of having love, in spite of having every opportunity to not go down the path that I did. I made those decisions and I began to own them and look to change my life. The one thing that was important to me once I got to prison was, even though I was in prison, I didn't want to live a life of just a prisoner or do what you're told that you're supposed to do once you go to prison. I tried to live my life as close as I could if I wouldn't have been incarcerated. So I immediately had the opportunity to develop a faith life. My Catholic faith is very important to me. I was born a cradle Catholic. But I didn't take my relationship with God seriously until I had that opportunity in prison to do so, until I had the opportunity to take the sacrament of confirmation. I also started having opportunities such as to complete my education. Initially it was to complete my GED. Eventually it was an opportunity to also take college courses, something that I would have wanted to do had I not gone to prison. And I always had a desire, servant's desire. I always enjoyed helping people when I was young, and although I was in prison, I always looked for ways to help others. Felt like I was born a leader, so whenever I had opportunities within prison clubs, inmate organizations, I took every opportunity I could to climb the ladder within whatever organization I was a part of, but also to take advantage of any leadership opportunity, any opportunity to better myself, any opportunity to help serve others. A couple of those programs, Michelle mentioned the United States Junior Chamber, which I became president of a club in JC's club in prison, was an awesome experience for me. I eventually became president of a Toastmasters club and then became a district officer. I was the first inmate to be able to serve as a district officer within Toastmasters. I was the first inmate to be recognized as a district Toastmaster of the year. Just given many opportunities. I was very, very fortunate that in spite of being someone who went to prison when they were 15, in spite of being someone who was sentenced by the state of Louisiana to die in prison. In Louisiana, a life sentence normally means exactly that, life. In spite of all these things, the Louisiana Department of Corrections gave me opportunities to improve my quality of life and to improve my character. For several years, I worked on that, even whenever I believed that I wouldn't have an opportunity to eventually be released. I mostly did it to make my parents proud. I knew my parents were very upset, to say the least, about me going to prison, and I wanted them to at least find comfort in the fact that their son was doing well in prison. In 2012, there was a U.S. Supreme Court decision called Miller v. Alabama. It came on the heels of a couple other decisions that impacted juveniles serving adult sentences. It started with the Roper decision, U.S. Supreme Court saying you can't give a juvenile the death penalty. Then the Graham decision said you can't give a non-homicide case of a juvenile life without parole. Then the Miller decision said that in a homicide case you could not give a juvenile a mandatory life without parole sentence. In Louisiana, this is a mandatory, like many other states, it's a mandatory sentence. So at that point I had an opportunity to have a second look. And my family was able to hire an attorney for me, Keith Nordyke, who's here, to represent me through the process of seeking resentencing and then a eventual parole hearing. I would say I was very fortunate because compared to many other individuals in Louisiana, we had 300 men and women that were serving this sentence for crimes they committed when they were juveniles. Compared to many of them, I had served a smaller amount of time, and I was one of the only individuals whose family could afford to provide them that representation. So I was fortunate where a judge resentenced me to be parole eligible, and then eventually the Louisiana Parole Committee looked at my case, looked at my background. And I was the first juvenile lifer under the Miller decision to go before the Louisiana Parole Committee. And in June of 2016, the Louisiana Parole Committee determined that I was worth a second chance, and they gave me parole. Now I'm from a town called Eunice, Louisiana, but I decided that once I was released, I wanted to start over in Baton Rouge. I had opportunities in Baton Rouge. I wanted to complete my college education in Baton Rouge. One thing I must note is that the individuals that I was closest to while I was incarcerated were other juvenile lifers. Whenever I first showed up at a state prison as a scared 17-year-old, it was other juvenile lifers that took me under their wing and made sure that I did not make the mistakes that they may have made when they first went to prison. They wanted to make sure that I was doing the best that I can do under the circumstances, and they were my mentors. Along the way, I met many juvenile lifers. I can tell you that, and this is not something I'm just making up, but actual data that we've studied, juvenile lifers are more likely to be trustees within prison. They're more likely to have attained educational achievement while they're incarcerated. They're more likely to be disciplinary infraction free while they're incarcerated. So these are individuals who went to prison as teenagers but have done the best that they can do at changing their lives while they were incarcerated. So many of my friends, so many people I consider family, brothers I grew up with. And being told that I was paroled was a very bittersweet feeling for me, knowing that I was very privileged, having only served 19 years. Only served 19 years when I know many individuals who had served 40 or 50 years that were in the same predicament I was in also. Almost none of them could afford an attorney. Many of them did not have family there to advocate for them, but they were no less deserving than I was. So I remember walking out of prison, the last two individuals that I saw at Angola before I was driven to the front gate to meet my family were two juvenile lifers. One had served 40 years, one had served 50 years. I remember them hugging me and telling me how proud they were of me and how happy they were for me and how they felt like I would be the individual that would be a good role model to show that juvenile lifers were a safe bet to give second chances to. And I remember thinking if I was in their shoes, I could not be as humble as they were in that moment. And when I was on the road, my sister and my parents picked me up from Angola and drove me away. And they asked me, now what? What do you want to do? And in that moment, I said, I want to continue to do what I've been doing while I was incarcerated. I want to continue to lead. I want to continue to help people. But I want to help people who are just like me. I want to help other juvenile lifers get the same opportunity I'm getting today. So soon thereafter, I told my attorney that it was really important to me that we figure out a way to reach back and help these other 300 individuals, many of whom were just as prepared as I was for the second chance. So I was asking him, hey, can you do pro bono work for several hundred people? I think at the time he had no idea what he was getting himself into. He He probably didn't have an idea how ambitious I would be about this project. But he's been there with me all along the way, along with LSU law professor Robert Lancaster. We formed Louisiana, I released June 2016 and August 2016. We formed Louisiana Parole Project. By the end of the year, the IRS gave us our 501c3 nonprofit designation. And since then, we've been working on the advocacy and representation and reentry of juvenile lifers. Not only do we want to get juvenile lifers out of prison, but we want to ensure these individuals have an opportunity to succeed upon release. So I'm going to show a few slides that talk about exactly what we do at Parole Project. In 2017, the Louisiana legislature, in Criminal Justice Reforms Act 277, gave some parameters around how juvenile lifers would be considered for parole. So Act 277 says they must have served 25 years, and there are other boxes they have to check, such as have their GED, have a low-risk assessment score, be disciplinary write-up free for the last 12 months. There are several more boxes to check, and that's just to get a hearing. So that's not guaranteed release, just to be able to go before a parole board. Many of these individuals will never be able to check all these boxes and won't even have a hearing. But also in the 2017 session, there was an Act 280, and part of Act 280 addressed an issue. Between 72 and 79, there were several individuals in Louisiana who were sentenced to life in prison, but at that time, life carried parole eligibility for many of these cases. From 72 to 77, it was after 20 years, 77 to 79 after 40 years. Then in 80, the state changed how we give life sentences. Life became life. And we retroactively took away parole eligibility for people who were sentenced to parole eligibility. Sort of an ex post facto issue, but the courts in Louisiana upheld it. In the 2017 session, the legislature gave parole eligibility back to individuals who were already sentenced to parole eligibility 40 years before. So these are about 120 individuals who were convicted of second-degree murder in the 70s, and Act 280 affects them. So we recognize these individuals have the same reentry issues that our juvenile lifers have, being they've been away for so long. We want to assist them too. And also our model, while our focus is juvenile lifers and 40-year lifers, we also want to work with anyone who served 20 plus years, because that's the model of our program. We don't start working with individuals just at release or just at the parole hearing. We start we know who all of our clients are. We know who our juvenile lifers are. We know who our Act 280 lifers are. We start identifying them and working with them, mostly at Angola, long before they'll have these hearings. We offer our services. They have to sign a contract with us. We interview our clients. We interview their family. We learn about their cases. And this is before we even determine if we're going to take their case. Many times we decide we're not going to take the case, because if Parole Project's going to put their name on a case, we want to ensure it's an individual we believe is going to go through the program and an individual who will be successful. We develop a client-specific reentry plan because every case is different. Not everyone has the same set of issues. Some individuals require a lot more work than others. And we work with their family and local reentry providers, partners, local community partners, to ensure that that level of care is provided to them upon release. Post-release, our program's in 3 phases. First, an orientation and intensive reintegration. So the way we think about our program is we don't throw our clients into the deep end of the pool. We start them off in the shallow end of the pool, and we help them go along the way. So that orientation, we pick them up at the front gate. Myself or someone on my staff is with them almost around the clock for the next 10 days or so. We recognize that individuals are most likely to reoffend immediately upon release. So we are with them around the clock because we don't want that to happen. That orientation, intensive reintegration, we have them in an apartment that's operated by Catholic Charities at Joseph Homes in Baton Rouge. All of our clients, no matter where they go, they start with us here in Baton Rouge. After that approximate 10-day program, they go to a step-down transition. It might stay in Baton Rouge. It might be with one of our partners we work with in New Orleans or around the Lafayette area. And that transition includes them having a job, getting their first job, but still coming home to a transition center every day. So they'll go out, work, start earning money, but they have a curfew. They live by rules, and that'll be at least for the next few months. And we continue to work with them at that point, addressing their needs. Finally, guided community reentry. They go home to their families, wherever their long-term residence is. We continue to work with them there. We assign them a mentor in whatever community they're working in. We look to connect them with individuals who were previously incarcerated that have successfully navigated this process. Everyone who works on the parole project staff has gone through the criminal justice system themselves. We believe in our model of peer mentorship. When we talk to our clients about the model, we want to be able to tell them we've been there and done that, and we work with them to ensure that at least some of their mentors long-term are formally incarcerated for that reason. Really quickly, some of the things we work with them on those first 10 days, these are individuals who've been incarcerated 25, 30, 40 years. Social norms, such as what is sexual harassment, what are boundary issues, what are gender roles, things that they may have missed during their incarceration. Employment skills, including job-seeking skills, job interview skills, and workplace etiquette. And when I talk about these different parts that we focus on, we don't just do that within the staff. We have volunteers, professional volunteers, subject matter experts in the community, for example. A lot of HR departments in the community volunteer to give mock job interviews to our clients. So that whenever they go on their first job interview, it's not the first one, they've had practice. Financial management, how to open a bank account. Many of them have never done it. How to manage their credit. Many of them are building credit for the first time. Consumer skills. We take clients who've been in prison for 40 years into Walmart for the first time, and it's a shocking experience for them to go into Walmart. We teach them how to be good consumers. Technological literacy. For the first time, they're picking up a cell phone. We start them off with a flip phone, and we graduate them eventually to a smartphone, but trying for them to understand how much technology has evolved. Very important for them to feel like they're part of, they're reintegrated not only with their family, but excuse me, with the community. We want them to feel that they're accepted in whatever their community they're eventually going to call home, and we work with their local community to ensure that they're connected to a church and to local groups that will accept them. And finally, almost all of our clients have never had their driver's license. They'll have to go through driving school. Driving school costs about $400 for someone going through it for the first time. Most of our clients don't have any money to their name, much less do they have $400 for driving school. So we work to get them through driving school, get their driver's license. So we try to remove barriers. Barriers to success, so they can't say this was too tough, I couldn't do it, so I just didn't get my license, and a year after driving without my license I got in trouble. No, we're going to get you your license, we're going to get you all your documentation, we're going to do this the right way. Our clients go from tax burdens to taxpayers. So the individuals we work with, we don't just do reentry for everybody. Our model won't necessarily work. The average person who goes to jail in Louisiana is going for 6 months to a year. They're probably 20, 21 years old. They have behavioral issues that we're not qualified to address. We work with individuals who did long periods of time. They've matured, they've grown past their criminal thinking, and they just need help adjusting to society, and they'll be successful. Because our clients are usually held at Angola, they're older, oftentimes they have medical issues, they're the most expensive offenders in the state. They're among the lowest risk, but they're the most expensive. We estimate they cost about $38,000 a year to the state. So far, since we started the Louisiana Parole Project, we've successfully advocated for the release and worked with 41 clients. All 41 of our clients, I must say, they're anywhere from being released for a year and a half to a couple weeks. But none of them have recidivated. Our program is working. These individuals at $38,000 a year times 41 in a year's time, that, as you can see, that's well over $1 million in savings to the state. These are individuals who wouldn't automatically be released. Because of our advocacy work, because of the trust that the parole committee has in our program, we're able to get them second chances. So we're really proud of the work we're doing, not only with our clients, but it's smart policy for saving the state money. I want to point out a few success stories really quickly. On On the left, Lou Sullivan. Lou Sullivan's been out a year and a half. He was one of our first clients. He served 44 years in prison. Went to prison when he was 16 years old, got out at 60. Today, Lou started his own small business. He cleans churches and small businesses during the week and on weekends. He's married now. He's very successful. We're very proud of Lou. Bob Thibodeau on the right served 36 years. Bob made his 1-year anniversary out about a month ago. He got a job when he first got out at a Ace Hardware store. Did really well, but he didn't like being in a store, and he had the idea he wanted to go through truck driving school. So we supported him on it, and we got him through truck driving school, and he's really successful today. The company he works for really likes him, and they're graduating him up through the company right now. The two individuals on the left are actually brothers. They were 17 and 16 years old when they went to prison for the same crime. The 16-year-old brother on the right was just there with his brother when he committed the crime, but they both got a life sentence, both served 44 years. They've been out just under a year. Both of them are very successful. They were probably Angola's two best carpenters. They learned carpentry while they were at Angola. Today they're very successful. They both have jobs outside the carpentry field, but in their spare time they're doing carpentry work, and they hope to eventually, after they save their money, to which they're doing right now. They're still in one of our transition centers, but they want to start their own small business also. On the left is a picture of the older brother, Frederick, the day I brought him home to his family in Ville Platte to see them for the first time. Just an example of the work we're doing, connecting families. On the left, Gary LaRue, one of our clients who's been out for a few months. Gary's doing very well. He's in the Lafayette area. He's doing maintenance work for an individual who owns several properties. His boss is very happy with his work, asking us when we could send another one of our clients just like him. On the right is Frank Green. Frank Green has been out for about 5 months. He's one of the 40-year lifers. He wasn't a juvenile lifer, but he went to prison when he was 19 and did over 40 years. He's building concrete culverts right now, and he's working 60-hour weeks, working overtime. We're getting very positive reviews from his employer also. On the left, Kenneth is actually working in the kitchen at a local Baton Rouge restaurant. He's been out for about 6 months now. He's doing very well. On the right, one of our most recent clients, Frank, went to prison when he was 17, spent 30 years in prison. He's been out for 7 weeks now. He's got a job as a car salesman. And he's doing really well. He's got a lot of personality, and I know he'll do that job well. As you can see in this picture, this is November of last year. It's myself, but also the picture was taken in Washington, D.C. at a conference. Everyone else in that picture is a former juvenile lifer. Each one of us are from different states, so I just wanted to point out this isn't something that's just happening in Louisiana. Now, Parole Project's unique. There's no other state that has an organization that's doing the kind of reentry work we're doing for juvenile lifers and long-termers. But individuals are getting out after serving these juvenile life sentences, and they're very successful. Even have one of our clients here today, Steve Perkins. Stand up for me. Steve, Steve's been in our program for about 1 month. Steve served 44 years. He went to prison whenever he was 17 years old. He went to McKinley High School, and the reason I know that is when I picked him up at Angola, whatever you have in your possession when you're arrested, sometimes it sticks with you. And for 44 years, his student ID card traveled with him. And whenever Angola gave me his discharge packet, his McKinley High School student ID card was in it. We're very proud of Steve. Steve's gone through our program successfully for the last month. He, excuse me, he's finished driving school. We've actually got him some temporary work. We're looking right now. Steve's from the Baton Rouge community. He wants to stay here. Steve would make someone an excellent employee. We're looking for full-time stable employment for Steve. If anyone's looking for a great employee, Steve would make one for you. The work that we're doing in Parole Project is funded this year by the Huey and Angelina Wilson Foundation. We got a very generous donation from them this year. This is the last year of their reentry grant cycle. So we're already looking at fundraising opportunities for next year, as they will not be able to support us moving forward. But the work we have to do continues. As Michelle said, I'll graduate from undergraduate, my undergraduate criminology degree at LSU in the spring of next year. I'm very fortunate I have a staff who's here with me today that allow me to be at school during the day, and where the work can continue whenever I'm at school, so I could continue my dreams. And for anyone who may think that I'm an exception to the rule, I want to tell you I'm not an exception to the rule. I'm an example of second chances. I'm an example of the power of a second chance. Individuals supported me. The correction system gave me opportunities to better myself. The parole board gave me a second chance. Employers gave me a second chance. Baton Rouge Community College and LSU gave me a second chance, and I'm making the most of it. I have no doubt any of these individuals that I've showed you today, including Steve Perkins, will do no less good things than I'm able to do. I'm going to continue to do these good things. And I wanted to be able to share that with you today, so you knew that there are opportunities for second chances for individuals who were once sentenced when they were young to die in prison. The U.S. Supreme Court recognized that these individuals are worth a second look, and I'm very thankful that I got my second look. And I would encourage any of you who may be interested in reentry work, who may be interested in giving someone a second chance, whether it's with a job, with an apartment, any opportunity you have, do it. Our clients, I can tell you, are of the most loyal, stable individuals, and they want to succeed. They want to prove. So I know I just have a few minutes left if anyone has any questions. Yes.
Do you want to do anything, or are you looking to go national to replicate the program?
The question was, are we looking to go national to replicate? So what we're what we're doing is sharing with other states. What we're doing, there's a national organization that does this advocacy work. Thank you. There's a national organization that does this advocacy work, and we work with them, and we're working with other states, other providers. There's so much work to do in Louisiana. We can't personally branch out, but we're not keeping this information from anyone else. So yeah, we're doing a lot of sharing of what's working, best practices. Yes.
Now that the Wilson grant is over, have you applied for the upcoming Capital Area United Way funding cycle? George Bell would love to take
We will be applying for that funding and many other funding. Thank you.
That process is going on. Hurry up.
Thank you. In the back.
What can academic institutions do? I know there's some barriers that are still present. What can academic institutions do to remove some of those barriers and ensure the success of these returning citizens?
Many of our clients want to continue their education. Transportation's an issue. Being able to work around their schedules would be great. Say something that academic institutions, LSU, Baton Rouge Community College, we're interested in any local institutions. LSU Law School, the Parole and Reentry Clinic provides interns to us to work on cases because Keith can't do all these cases by himself. We get interns from undergraduate interns from these colleges that volunteer to improve. So that's one thing that can happen at that academic programs. Just give clients opportunities.
One last question.
Over here. Under the criminal justice reform projects that took place in the legislature, there was the money that was saved was supposed to go back to helping prevent recidivism and also do some programs you're doing. Have you applied for any of that funding?
Yes, we've applied for that funding. The decision will be made at the end of this month. We don't have any inclination if we will be funded. We see that the work we're doing is the biggest bang for the buck because we're doing reentry work with the most expensive people, and we're giving them the avenue to be released when they're not automatic. So we're creating savings there. Our clients are not the most high risk, but they're high needs. And if those needs aren't met, they become high risk. So that's the argument we made to the department, and hopefully at the end of this month, we'll hear from them that they're going to fund our project. Thank you very much.
Support provided by Walters, Papillon, Thomas Cullens, LLC, specializing in business litigation and personal injury cases for over 40 years.